Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Developers Unplugged podcast. We've got Adam here as a special guest. Adam, thank you very much for coming on board.
My pleasure, Harry. Thank you for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. It's been, I think, it's been well over a year since the last episode. So consistency with the with the upload. So sorry about that. But of course, I wanted to, I think, come back and do this. I really did enjoy it last year. It was really great. Obviously, we're speaking to professionals in the Berlin market, within engineering management space as well. So without further ado, I mean, Adam, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm an old man. I've been sometimes a cranky old man who shouts at the clouds. So I've been in software engineering for going on 25 years. A lot of that time has been spent managing teams rather than people. I think about the time I was 32 or so about 10 years ago, I found that programming computers was interesting, but not as interesting as programming people and teams. Because at least for me as a software engineer, maybe this is, the boy with a hammer, everything looking like a nail. At least for me, it's a lot of the same process, especially like debugging. You see something that you have an idea of what you want it to be in your mind. You identify where it's not quite meeting up with that expectation. You try to make a change. You observe the difference, whether you got further or closer to the target, and you repeat until you get close to the ideal that you had in your head, whether you're working with an individual or on yourself as an individual, with teams, etc. So I really find it to be, very enjoyable. It's also something of a passion of mine to help develop other engineering leaders. Maybe you're a senior engineer and you've got it in your mind like, hey, maybe I want to try out this software engineering management stuff. Well, I can tell you, at least from my experience, it's a career change. It's not a promotion. So I like working with folks that want to dip their toes in, help give them a safety net for doing that, and giving them at least my best advice on the worst things I've done in my career to help them not repeat the same things. I've worked in startups, small startups. I've worked in bigger companies. I've worked in things in the middle. I've worked with teams on location, with distributed teams, big and small. But I found my favorite is working with startups where maybe it's one team or two. Maybe it's just a whole big group of 10, 12 people running around. Startups that want to grow up from that into something that functions systematically to get stuff done, help people feel successful, and grow not just the organization, but the individuals in it. So there's me.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I feel like this is your podcast, really, already.
Well, you've been on interviews with me before.
Yeah. But no, that was a really detailed explanation. So thanks a lot for that. I suppose before we kind of get started, I guess, and I've got so many questions to ask you because you've just been through so many different experiences, different teams, the structures and all that. It's so wide in terms of your experience, which is just really, really helpful, I guess, for aspiring software engineers or people looking to get into software engineering that may be listening to this as well at the moment. Before I do that, how did you specifically get into software engineering? Did you always know when you was in school, or was it something that just you fell into?
Well, when I was your age, when I was much younger than your age, we used to send away and subscribe to magazines, and they'd send them to you. And it wouldn't come with a diskette, which is a little like CD looking thing like this. It has magnetic media. They wouldn't send you even that. They'd send you the code in the magazine, and you type it into your TRS-80 or your Apple IIe, and that's how you would start programming things. So this is where I started actually working on computers, but I didn't always want to be a software engineer. I wanted to be a chemistry teacher. And I got about halfway through that program at university and decided actually the environment wasn't one that I wanted to go into. So I got into computer science and economics as my dual degree. So I started doing that. And one day I was in I think it was databases 305 class with Professor Maganda. And he came downstairs and he said, you should apply for this job that they have upstairs in IT services because you already have a job. There are only 4 people in the class because it was that kind of class. And so I applied for it, got a job working for the university that I was going to school at, developing their like student registration system, faculty payroll, definitely not changing grades for folks for money or anything like that. But, you know, and from there I moved to system administration on that same platform, and then consulting, where I worked with a lot of different companies over a very short period of time, 6 years or so, about 90 different clients. But from there, I went into product and then engineering management.
Wow. Wow, what a story. And you said right at the start that you've been into consulting and you obviously had loads of different experiences. Do you think that working in consulting in 2025 is a good thing or a good start to somebody's career as a software engineer as they adapt to new skills?
I think that there are good places to work with, and there are not great places to work. So there's the standard senior engineers response of it depends. If you're looking to get into this and you find a place that will really support you to learn and to grow and understands that as a junior, and as a junior anywhere, we're paying you less because in cash, because we're paying you more in education, and over time that balance starts to shift and shift and shift, and the cash gets more and more and more until you are self-sufficient. If they understand that and are willing to support that, and you ask questions in an interview to validate that, then I would consider it. If they just want bodies to throw at a project that they're just spinning up, and there's no real clear plan for how you can develop the skills you need to be successful in general and in specific to that project, then I would say don't do that.
Interesting. Because I suppose it is exactly that, isn't it? It depends on the project. It depends on your learning. I mean, would you suggest that somebody, because I've seen this quite a bit as well, by the way, recently, because it's really hard for junior engineers at the moment to find a job, right? It's really, really tough. Especially here in Europe and Berlin or whatever, it's really hard for people to get an opportunity when they've got no experience. Would you even suggest for them to volunteer work for free if it meant that they would actually acquire new skills and over time, of course, like you say, maybe get quicker to that balance of getting the cash higher as such?
That's an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked me that as I stall for time and think about the answer.
keep on saying it's an excellent question for 10 minutes.
I would never encourage for people to do things for free to their own disadvantage. But okay, if it is definitely the sort of project that you can use and you see you maybe need the external motivation of having commitments to other people to get stuff done in order to get you out of bed and get your hands on the keyboard to do the things that you need to learn, and you're going to get feedback from people who are maybe more senior than you about how to improve there. That would be one reason that you might want to do that. Another reason might be to have at least building up a portfolio that you can share. And there are tons and tons of open source projects out there that might be interesting to help to volunteer on. Some of the communities are more supportive than others. Some are downright toxic. But finding something, especially in the Berlin area, maybe there's some people working on some social need problems. Mental health with AI has been really big recently, where you can go and attach yourself to the project, learn from folks working in there, and have something to show to other people at the end of the day. That would definitely give you something to show during the interviews, or in your portfolio, or on the little box that says add your personal website or your GitHub repo here on the application. That would be a good leg up. If it's working for your Uncle Stan, who promises to buy you pizza and beer because he's got the world's greatest new app idea or something akin to that, maybe stay away from that, because you might want to talk to your Uncle Stan sometime in the next 20 years.
Interesting. Okay. Again, massively dependent on the opportunity. And I guess it comes into kind of like digging deeper into the interviews, the questions, talking about what your aspirations are as an engineer as well. I guess it's starting out. I'm very interested, by the way, in yourself, because you've been obviously in software engineering longer than most. And I'm really interested because I know quite a few people that have had entire careers in software engineering, but it's quite rare. And they've always got like a reason as to why it is that they stayed. and why they've been engaged. What for you is the reason why, even now, 2025, after decades of being in software engineering, that you are still here and you're still engaged? I mean, what has kept you here in this industry?
So a little bit of ego, but altruistic ego. I'll put it that way. I don't have any kids. I'm not going to have any kids. But I've got a lot of experience that I like to share with folks. When I work like I had at Smoobu to develop 5 new engineering managers who had never been engineering managers before, and they call me up and they say, "Hey, can we have a beer? I've got questions. You are the best. You're the best manager I've ever had, and thank you so much for that." And all those kinds of, it really strokes the ego. It makes me feel like I'm contributing to the world there. I'm doing something beneficial. And when they take their skills and knowledge and use that to help other folks, who use that to help other folks and other folks, that makes me feel great. The money is there, but once you have enough of it, or once the salary is high enough, at least for me, then it's not as much of a motivator. It's more about what I'm able to build, the opportunity to help people improve themselves and the environment around them, and what we can take a step back and look and write an article and point to things and help other folks across the world to learn from mistakes and successes. That to me is great. Engineering and software engineering and development still is, thankfully, the type of place where we do share knowledge freely. And knowledge is like love. The more you share it, the more you make. So when and if that starts to change, knock on wood, hopefully it never does, in software engineering, well, then I will know it's just time to fully retire and go and grow olives or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely that. That's really interesting that you say about the ego thing, by the way, because a lot of people wouldn't usually be so open about that. A lot of people would say that it was something else. But the fact that you're saying that you really like that feedback from your team and sharing the knowledge and stuff, I mean, that's kind of, so you would say that was like the main motivator to keep you here?
Well, I mean, our ego is tightly tied to our satisfaction. What it is that actually satisfies us in something. And I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting to yourself or to other people what you really get out of something and why you do that. Otherwise, maybe it would for people that can't articulate it, it kind of indicates to me maybe they don't either introspect enough or they don't trust enough in order to be in a collaborative environment that counts on continuous improvement. So, yeah, I would encourage people, understand your ego, accept it. It's there for a reason, and it's not something to be ashamed of, so long as you're not doing things that hurt people rather than help them.
Yeah, that's probably the bad ego.
Yeah, there's a couple of people that names rhyme with Husk and Zazos, that maybe they have not the right kind of ego.
Absolutely. Okay, and I know we've gone about 20 minutes now without saying the words AI, but we have to. Obviously, you've been a part of the change. AI is not something, many people don't know this. It's not something that's just appeared 2 or 3 years ago. It's been around for a very long time, right?
Turing's was talking about it for several years, 60 years ago. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's even in if people know the Matrix, the movie, it's even in that they actually say about artificial intelligence, and that was like 1999, which is insane. But how has AI changed software engineering over the last couple of years for you, do you think? And what direction do you think that we're sort of heading into?
I think that it has it's like if you were a kid and you wanted to build a model race car or something like that. Maybe there wasn't a set out there. You had to go and make all the little pieces yourself. You had to paint it all, yada yada. What AI allows us to do as engineers is, instead of having to go through all that labor to get to at least a testable product, give us like Lego bricks that we can snap together, get to a prototype, get to some sort of validation faster. That doesn't mean that you should go out and build a car that you're going to drive down the road out of Lego bricks. I don't think the technology is there yet, or may never be. But at least like the biggest thing I've seen in the past 5 years or so is going from the big Duplo bricks that are very coarse to things that are much more refined that you can actually use and get to something that is testable faster. So that has been a big improvement. It's also become part of our development environment. The suggestions in your IDE have been getting better depending on who you ask. And we've actually got AI assistants that will write some code for us. And I think, well, something that happened earlier this week, I was talking to a friend of mine. He told me about an experience one of his senior engineers had having an interview where they actually locked him into Claude and said, you can only use Claude for this next part of the exercise, for this next round of the interview. And they expected him to use Claude to and provide prompts to generate something usable at the end. And I thought this was, you know, when you first hear this, you go, oh man, really? This is stupid. But when you think about it, these tools aren't going away. They're probably only going to improve. So especially for senior engineers, we should learn how to appropriately leverage these things to become more productive, to get to answer our questions more quickly, to find the bad ideas and eliminate them from our ADRs before we make the like a choice to go down a path we think is more productive. So yeah.
Very interesting. I think the AI with like recruiting and stuff like that, that's got like a very controversial way of people's that kind of opinions, I suppose. Especially for me, I'm in recruitment. I do the Berlin market, and it was very rife last year when there was like all of these different AI platforms, and they basically look for keywords in people's CVs, and then they make their shortlist, and people were getting rejected, engineers. And I know this because I literally speak to hundreds every week sometimes, and I'm really busy. And they'd be like, Harry, I've just been rejected from this company, but I've never even spoke to anyone. And it's just an auto rejection. And I'm like, that's AI.
Well, maybe if you don't mind me turn the conversation towards you. I know this is about software engineering, but I'm sure people who are looking to be recruited would be interested. How has the use in AI changed in recruiting? Because I know that we've got our applicant tracking systems and things like that. It goes and it tries to surface candidates that we think might be interesting. But I would imagine that if you just blindly follow whatever the ATS's AI is telling you as a recruiter, you're not going to be a very successful recruiter. Is that true or not true?
Very, very, very true. The way, I think, if I'm being honest, so if we go back like say 2 or 3 years ago, when there was these new platforms that were coming out and it was all AI powered. And I genuinely, and many people in the recruitment industry thought, oh, maybe we'll be replaced here. 2025 is kind of then proven that that's not going to be the case, because to identify who's a strong engineer and who's a good fit for a company, you need to speak to them. Some of the best and most talented engineers that I have ever known that I've helped find jobs are the ones that don't even have a CV, or it's not that good. And if they was to put it through, like a AI generated CV, screener or whatever, then they wouldn't get through even to meeting a person or a real human. So for me, it's not changed. But for me, I'm trying to educate many companies now to say, hey, AI is here. We shouldn't fear it. Actually, we should embrace it and move with the times. Otherwise, we'll be left behind. I completely agree. And I think actually AI and machine learning is super exciting, and the power of that. You mentioned a lot about the mental health side of things as well. There's so many great ideas, and it's just sparks software engineering as a whole. It's been really exciting, and it's an absolute revolution. But there's also a place for it, and I really don't think that over-reliance is a good thing here. Someone like me speaking to people, understanding what they're looking for, rather than an engineer talking to a robot for 30 minutes on talking to themselves effectively remotely. It's not engaging. So to answer your question in terms of like how it's changed, it's more about how it was 2 years ago was really bad. And, people just immediately were like, great, we're just using AI powered software. Whereas now I think we've kind of done a full cycle. People were immediately like, cool, we'll take the human element out of it and we'll be way more efficient. And now they're finding out that actually they're missing out on great software engineers because they need the human element to really assess that. So it's very interesting.
I think you're describing either what has already happened or maybe what is still to happen in software engineering itself. Yes, there's a lot of hype. It's exciting. It can do so many interesting things, but at the end of the day, it's like talking to yourself. It's like having, if you're familiar with rubber duck debugging, it's like having a supercharged rubber duck, but you still got to know how to ask the duck the questions, and you still got to know how to apply the counter prompt that it gives back to you. Is this appropriate? Does this fit with these things? It has to be, you have to make decisions about the appropriateness of things and how to apply it. There's a slide from a presentation at like an IBM conference, 1972, that says something along the lines of, a machine can never be a manager because a machine can never be held accountable for its decisions. And I hope we don't start to have AI managers and AI CEOs and AI COOs and blah, blah, blah for that very reason. But we can also use this as something to abstract against for engineering. AI should never be a software engineer. It can be a coder or a programmer that gives us some ideas, but we still have to make decisions about what is the least worst pattern, what is the least worst choice we could make here as a software engineer in order to realize some value today, but also not make life terrible for the most important person in the world, who is future you. The guy that's going to open up the code base in 2 years, or the gal is going to open up the code base in 2 years and go, what idiot wrote that? Oh, that was me. That was me. So let's not make life worse for those people by over relying on the AI.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there completely. And obviously, I'm just conscious of our time here, but I want to just wrap up just with this one last question, because I know, of course, you've got so much experience when it comes to building and leading teams, especially from scratch, specifically engineering teams. What is, if there is any, what is the sort of 1 or 2 characteristics that you look for when you're considering hiring a software engineer that makes you go, that person's going to be successful in my team, they're going to be high performing?
Especially as somebody who is more junior, but even, I mean, maybe even especially as somebody who's like a staff engineer. I don't care what you know. I care about how you know it. So when I'm interviewing, yeah, you may not have had the exact same experiences that I've had, or have the exact same skill set that my team currently has, but that's okay. That's our job. It's our job to give you those experiences, to teach you those skills. What I want to know is what you do know and how you came to find that information. Are you educable? Are you curious? Are you capable of reaching out when you've tried for a little bit and something's just not making sense or working, and saying, hey, I need some help here, or asking questions to clarify before you start working immediately on something, because you're actually curious about getting into the value that you're trying to deliver with your work, understanding it, who's it for, where do they use it, how do they use it, before you just start giving some sort of leak code answer to some algorithm.
Curiosity.
I would say that is the main one.
Yeah, that's what I look for as well. And sometimes it's like, as a staff level, for example, someone of like 10 plus years experience, writing code hands-on, bit of a veteran, clearly they're capable of the job, but sometimes they kind of lose that spark, don't they? You know, they're very set in their ways. They can be quite tricky to work with, not always, but of course it's quite tough, isn't it? So how do you properly assess that as well to make sure that you're making the right hire there?
So we talked about the junior that needs help with just about everything and anything that they might do. Then we have like the meteor positions where you're expected to be fully competent. You can handle most things, even the complicated things, all by yourself, and that's cool. But if you're a senior, you are not a senior unless you are helping somebody not be a junior or not be a meteor anymore, but to grow. So you're able to give value beyond just what you put through the keyboard. Is value that you're generating by upskilling the people around you. So if I ask somebody during an interview for a senior or a staff, like, okay, tell me about the last time you helped somebody move from one level or to another, or the last time you taught somebody a skill, or tell me about your mentors, who are your mentees, who are you mentoring? And they say, nobody, I just like to get the tickets and get them done as fast as possible. To me, you're not a senior, you're just a very experienced meteor, and that's okay. But I would love for you to learn the joy of growing and sharing the knowledge that you do have with people around you in order to be considered senior.
Yeah, it goes back to, we've done a full cycle here as well, right at the end. It's the knowledge sharing, right? You know, the curiosity, the knowledge sharing. I think that is what makes such a great engineering team, is that the seniors and the staffs who have had all of this experience, they share knowledge and they want to. They almost get a buzz out of it, like what you do. You know, you actually love when people are, you know, complimentary of your work, and the knowledge that you share benefits their life or their career in some positive way. And it's like, from the juniors, it's their responsibility to also ask these questions and be curious and always ask why, almost like a little kid in the way.
As quickly as possible. Yeah.
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 No, it's fine. So yeah, no, I think that's awesome. But look, thank you so much, Adam. It's been absolutely brilliant. I feel like I could speak to you probably for another 2 or 3 hours. Maybe we'll have you on again, because this has been really good. And I know that you've got so many other topics that it would be really cool to just get your perspective on as well. But thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm very happy to do it. Would be very happy to do more of it in the future. And please, if you're watching this out on podcast land, if you got any questions or objections or counterpoints to anything that I've said, please at me in the comments, and I'd love to have a discussion and learn from you about what you think. Absolutely. Reach out to Adam, not me. And on that note, thank you very much for watching. Yeah, hopefully we'll shoot the podcast a little bit sooner than a year. All right. Thank you.